All right, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use the extruder in the classroom. This is the extruder. The extruder has dies, and these dies let you choose which size of a coil will come out of this machine. So we put a log in here, we put one of these dies in, and if we wanted an oval shape like this, or a hexagon, or a shape like one of these, we put these dies in and use them. So the first thing you'll need to do is come over to the clay chest, and you'll need to get a log of clay. And depending on what you're extruding for, you'll get a larger or smaller log of clay. When you're extruding the clay, you want to get clay, it doesn't matter, this clay's a little stiff, but when you get clay, you want to make sure you get enough for the amount of coils you need. If you're making a coil pot like you are in your next project, you want to make a bunch of coils that you can use over the next few days, or at least over the class period. You don't make one coil at a time. You can also share these with your classmates. This log will not fit in here. You can see it doesn't fit. We need to hit it down a little bit smaller. So on this table, this is the wedging table. We're going to throw the clay down at an angle. And I'm throwing it at an angle because this will stretch the log out a little bit and make it longer and thinner. And now this log will fit inside here. So this log is ready for us to extrude. From the extruder, it should always be hanging here. There's this collar, and it hangs right here on this little square hook. It hangs on this side, or you could hang it on this side. But we always leave it hanging when we're done, so it's ready for the next person. This collar is going to hold one of the coil dies. So depending on what size of die I want to use, let's say I want to make a circle this size, I would put this die in. If we're making a coil pot, we could use a really big coil. We could also select a size from here. I'm going to select from here so you can see how you would use these selecting tools. If I was going to extrude one of these coils, I would take this selection tool and line it up with the circle that I want to use, and then this is the coil that would come out of the extruder. If I was using an extrusion die that only has one size, it's even simpler. You just throw it in there and you get started. I want to make sure it's not halfway aligned like this. I want to align it all the way. Okay, so now that I have it aligned, I'm going to put this on, and then this rotates over these pins, and now the collar is in place. If you look down in there, you'll see that little circle, which means that I'm aligned up. Now I will take my log of clay and put this in the extruder. And you can see that log is pretty much the size of the extruder. Now, what I need to do is I need to use this plunger, and I'm going to push the clay down, and it's going to come out the bottom and make coils. So to understand how this works, there is a selection plate right here. This plate needs to be all the way up. So you can see there's this little top pointy thing here. That goes all the way up against these four little clutch brackets. So you can lift this up with your fingers, and it makes it really easy to lock it right in place. You can also slide it in place, but there's a little groove here, and we need to go past that groove. Okay, on the bottom, if we want it to go down, it's the same thing. We change this here. When it's all the way up, this can only go up. When it's all the way down, it can only go down. You can see it goes down. It won't go back up. When it's in the middle is when it's at its dangerous stage. It can go up, or it can go down. And you don't want to get your fingers trapped in between there. So, if it's in the up position where you should leave it, it will be here. We're going to align this over the top. And we're going to pull on this little yellow tab until it's in the down position. Now we're ready to extrude our clay. And now it's kind of just a seesaw motion. I lift this arm up to the top, and then I pull down on that arm. And it pushes the clay down. And I lift back up, this climbs down, and I pull the arm down again. You're gonna start to feel some tension. And you'll notice when you feel tension sometimes, this piece isn't moving. If you just give it a light tap, it'll keep it moving down. Now you can see I've got some tension here. When I pull down now, you're gonna see the clay is gonna start coming out of the bottom. And I'm hanging from it, giving it a nice pull. This clay's a little stiffer, so I'm having to put some more weight into it. And you can see as I pull this lever down, the clay comes out. I do wanna make longer coils. So I've got a coil here. I'm gonna set this coil down. And then I'm gonna use the rest of this clay, and you can see I'm pulling down on this handle, and this coil comes out. And then I'll set this one down. And I repeat this until all the clay is out or I have the amount of coils I need. If for some reason this gets stuck and you're hitting it and it's not working, you can also get it to slide back down. If you move it to that middle position, it will slide back down. Then lock it back down, and here we are again. All right, so now I have 4 coils. Oh, we're getting a little sticky here. You can see I pulled 3 coils at a time. So I'm taking that large log, and I am shrinking it down into some smaller ones. Now you'll notice that this is almost at the bottom. This is all we can go. Once this pushes down all the way, there will be no more coils in the machine. That's it, no more. So now I have all the coils that I can get. Then I need to reset this for the next person. So I need to work this right back up the way I got it. So I'm going to lift up on this yellow piece here, and sometimes it can be a little tricky to lift up. This is where it makes sense sometimes for you to either push underneath it or to lift up on this little clutch pin and move that all the way to the top. And now this motion is a little bit of a suction cup motion. You can see I put my hand underneath it. My other hand is here. And I lift up a little bit, lift up on the lever. Push with my right arm or the arm closest to the clutch, up, and then up a little bit. And you'll hear some suction. And I lift it all the way to the top. You'll notice some clay on the top here. We'll remove this and put it in the scrap clay. We'll push this arm off to the side. Then I'm going to remove this here. If the next person's gonna come up and there's someone behind you, you can leave this on if they're using the same size coil. They can put their clay in there, but you'll notice if you look in there, there's gonna be some extra clay in there. You can see there's a little bit of clay still left in here. And if the person behind you, or there is no one behind you, is using it, we need to remove this clay. So I'm gonna take the disc. You can see where the disc goes, hang it back up where it goes. Then I've got my selection disc that's here. This is kind of stuck to the clay a little bit, so I kind of have to peel it off. That will go with my scrap clay as well. And then I will attach this piece back on there too. This clay I will put in our scrap clay. And now I have my coils. We don't want to leave the coils on the table because they will dry out, and then when they go to bend them, they won't bend, they'll crack. And so we need to keep these coils wet. So if you're using these coils, but you're not gonna be able to use them all in one class period, we can bag them up. But it's best to use all the coils in one day. So what that means, let's work in pairs. So you and a partner, maybe you make some coils together, and then you use them. And if you run out during that class period, whoever made the first round can keep working while the other person goes and makes the second round. But usually if you do a full log like this will be enough coils for 2 or 3 people for the day. But one person can always go back and make more if they need to. If we wrap the coils up like this and we get all the air out of the bag as best we can, and maybe if you even spray a little water in there, these coils will last until the next day, probably not a day after, unless you spray some water lightly in there. We don't want to put coils in the orange room and just leave them there without our name tag on it, because then the room will just fill up with coils that no one has claimed, okay? These little coils you can absolutely use. Maybe you're gonna start by using a small coil. Maybe you need a smaller coil for the top of your project. But for the most part, it's okay if you've got little coils or scraps of coils at the end of the day you're not using. We'll just recycle those coils. Try not to extrude coils and then put them immediately on that pile. Maybe just ask around, does anybody need an extra coil? If 10 of us are making coil pots and you need one more coil for the day, there's a good chance someone else has an extra coil that they've made that they're not gonna use. Better you use it than them try to wrap it up for the day. The last thing we need to do is take this collar. I'm gonna see if I can pull out any extra clay from the collar. That's some more scrap clay. And then I'm gonna hang this collar up. And now the extruder is ready for the next person.